The topic is freedom for the oppressed. And then, of course, who do we define as oppressed? The last session that we have, the climate was oppressed, women are oppressed. But here, large section of humanity is also oppressed. So we have a very interesting panel here today who's going to give their input on this topic. So to my left is Dr. Samia Babar, who's going to read out a speech by Anwar Mansoor Khan Saab, who's a senior advocate of the Supreme Court, and he's also the former Attorney General and has written and talks extensively about human rights, both in the country and about situations abroad. So Samia, it's over to you, and I will introduce the guest on my right once Samia is done.
Thank you, Huma. The title of what has been shared by Anwar Mansoor Khan is Oppression Leads to Breach of Peace and Security. To save succeeding generations from the scourge wars was the main motivation for the creation of the United Nations. In the recent past, we see one of the permanent members having veto power in aggression against Ukraine. The war of Yemen, where Saudi Arabia, with the blessing of the powerful, continue to cause misery and destruction there. The members of the United Nations have subscribed to such wars. The destruction of Libya, Iraq, Kuwait, Afghanistan are some examples of aggression causing breach of peace in the world. One of the first such disputes after the Second World War was the Kashmir dispute, where the United Nations Security Council intervened in their 287th meeting, passed Resolution 47 of 1948, which ruled that the people settled in Jammu and Kashmir shall have the right to decide their own fate through a plebiscite. Kashmir is a stateless nation where in 1947 the ruler of Kashmir, Maharaja Hari Singh, signed an instrument of accession which was accepted by Lord Mountbatten of Burma, then the Governor General of India, whereby it was categorically accepted that except for defense, foreign affairs, communication and finance, no laws of India shall be implemented in Jammu and Kashmir. Serious resentment continued and continues till date. It is unfortunate that the United Nations has now become a platform for political maneuvering rather than diplomacy, and having power to cause to implement its resolutions for the purpose of achieving peace. Permanent members of the United Nations need to think over this critical issue and deal with it strictly in accordance with the Charter of United Nations and various resolutions passed by it, such that each resolution is implemented in terms of Chapter 7, especially Articles 39 to 51 in the Charter. In the end, whether these members choose their country's prosperity over the Charter and the very reason for UN's existence poses a great responsibility upon them.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That was Mr. Anwar Mansoor's speech for this event, which encapsulates the legal dimension of the entire situation that is there in Kashmir. We continue to live with it. And we know conflicts such as these don't go away as easily. But I'm the moderator, so I think I'll stop talking and I'll invite two very eminent speakers to tell you more about this issue and overall about the oppressed in Kashmir. So it's Marc Siegel, it's over to you.
Okay, so I'm going to try to wake everybody up so they're wide awake when John talks. So, so to put out on the table, the topic is the freedom for the oppressed, and to me it's become an unachievable goal because so much of the people who feel they're the quote guardian of the galaxy and guardian of freedoms are essentially Western racists. And you look at the different conflicts that have taken place around the world over the past decade or so, and it was really brought to life with the Ukraine crisis. And I've been working in Moldova with the Ukrainian relief, But before that, I was working in San Diego, helping with the Afghan refugees that were being resettled in San Diego. So when I told people I was doing that, nobody makes a peep. It's like, so what? But every single person, I can't think of a single exception, when I said I was going to Moldova to help with the refugee crisis there, God bless you. And there's the people in the West who feel that they are actually the guardians and protectors of freedom and the oppressed all around the world have managed to dehumanize people who are not like them. And this is the big challenge. So somehow, unless you break that cycle, it's very hard to see how anybody is going to show sympathy towards causes outside of essentially people who look like them. And, you know, hopefully there is some way out. I must say, I can't figure out the solution to that one.
Okay, thank you, Marc. He did wake us all up, and on a very somber note, because he said that he doesn't see this coming to an end. There is perhaps no freedom for the oppressed in near future, foreseeable future, but I think also the norms of justice and human rights and how humans, no matter what the color of their skin is, are still humans. So it's not just that black lives matter or white lives matter, all lives matter. And with that, I am going to request John DeBlasio, who's a diplomacy security expert, to speak on the topic.
I think in our Constitution in the United States, which is an interesting document to have been written 240 years ago, it says somewhere in there, all men are created equal with a series of inalienable rights and the pursuit of happiness. It doesn't say anybody's guaranteed happiness, but it gives you this idea that you're all given inalienable rights at a basic level, and that you have the right to pursue happiness. And I think that that theory of the world, that we are all given inalienable rights, has now become much, much more accepted, irrespective of the color of those imposing actions on others, as they want the world to see these things. But in fact, it is a different world. It isn't what we experienced with the genocide in Rwanda. These things aren't tolerable, what we saw in Srebrenica. The day after Bucha, it was persona non grata for the Russians. And they're going to be in the penalty box for a very long time for this. And I think it comes about that they've disregarded those inalienable rights to the citizens of humanity, and that's just not something that humans will tolerate any longer.
Thank you so much, John. So he's right, it's a different world, but I wonder if it's a better world, or we just have new war fronts. There's a battle of narratives, there's a propaganda warfare, there's a cyber warfare. So I just think that we have more fronts and we haven't closed the old ones. That's how I see the situation. And thank you all.